Hello, this is a free call from
Joseph Armstrong.
An incarcerated individual at
Fremont Correctional Facility.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
To accept this free call, press 1. To refuse, thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Joey Bear.
Proceed. Hey, how you doing?
I am good. So we're going to give everyone a trigger warning that this conversation will include inappropriate language because there's no way I can talk about this without swearing because that's really who I am. I work hard not to be that person, but at the end of the day, I'm just a redneck from Maine that talks like a sailor. That's who we are. So we're going to talk about my stress with the prison. We're going to talk about my morning. So you called this morning after we recorded, and you told me, and you had told me already that you were itchy, and I said it sounds like an allergic reaction. And then you called back to tell me that you were breaking out in hives and blisters, and I was like, it most certainly is an allergic reaction. And the problem with an allergic reaction is sometimes it builds up, so it will continue to get worse. If you're going to go into anaphylactic shock, that usually happens immediately, but you can have an allergic reaction that starts as itching, goes to hives, and then starts to be swelling of your throat. Your face can swell, you can struggle to breathe, and it can be life-threatening. So I consider an allergic reaction a medical emergency, and I told you to go to medical right away, and you tried, and why don't you tell them what they told you?
Okay, first, for this facility and from Colorado's Department of Corrections, you have to declare a medical emergency. And so the officer was making rounds in his pod. And I said, hey, I need to declare a medical emergency. I can't stop itching. Everything's itching. They're watching me just itch the poop out of my hand, taking the skin off my hands and everything, and my arms and my knees and all that. And so he said, yeah, I'll call. So about 45 minutes goes by, and I can't take it no more. And they call movement for the Jehovah's Witness program. So I go with that movement, and I walk right into medical, and I tell the people in medical, I'm like, hey, I'm having an allergic reaction, I think, to some medicine. And I tell them, and they see me scratching, itching, and going crazy in here. And they're like, oh, well, you have to go back and declare medical emergency with your staff. I was like, I did. And they're like, oh, no, he never called. I was like, well, what do I got to do here? Because this is driving me crazy. By now, I've got a lot of my skin scratched off of my body and everything. Now there's going to be a bunch of scabs everywhere. And they're like, nope, you got to go back and get declared emergency. So I walk back to the unit, get in the unit to the sergeant's office, and I tell the guy that's supposed to be calling, I say, hey, can you go ahead and call them and tell them? If he cuts me short right then. He's like, hey, they'll call you when they're ready for you. So I was like, hey, no, they won't, because you haven't called them and declared a medical emergency yet. He's like, well, you're not supposed to go down there. I said, it was movement. I'm allowed to go down there. And so then he was like, huh. And then I was like, look, please just call the medical emergency. Then I came back in, and I gave you a call. And I was like, look, I need you to call up here because this is getting absurd. And it's just getting to where I can't stop itching and scratching and everything. And then
and you told me that you had broken out in hives at that point. So It's obviously getting worse. And I said, of course, honey, I'll call for you. Now, Joey has never, ever, ever asked me to call the prison, and the next part is probably why. Because I called the prison, and I get a hold of the operator. It hits 0. I don't know who to talk to, so I told her who I was calling on behalf, and that I needed her to call the unit for a medical emergency, for an allergic reaction, and she said, no, I'm not calling the unit. And I said, oh, I'm like, well, this could be life-threatening for him. So why don't you put me through to the warden? Like, and it escalated very quickly. And she was like, no, because we currently do not have a warden. And I said, look, somebody there is in charge because it's not you. So put me through to the assistant warden. So she was like, yeah, okay, I'll transfer your call to him. And I'm like, okay. And she transferred my call, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang. It never went through to a voicemail. So I was like, bitch, no, you did not. And so I call her back, and I'm like, You just sent me to a number that didn't go to a voicemail, and I told you that I needed to speak to somebody about a medical emergency. Now, you're telling me that there's nothing that can be done, and clearly I know that there can. So why don't you tell me what is your name and what is your number? And she told me it rhymes with Threston, but we're going to protect her identity and tell you that. And she gave me her number, and I said, okay. And I then called the case manager's office because I know they have a voicemail. So I explained to them what was happening and threw her under the bus to the case managers and asked them to give me a call Monday morning when they got a chance. And then I called medical. I called medical to leave a voicemail for the administrator to let her know that there was a medical emergency and everyone was refusing to treat it, and to call me Monday morning because I was very concerned. And then I emailed the DOC of Colorado, which is a general email that takes general complaints, but I don't care because when I'm angry and I can't tell you to eat shit and die, I go professional. And just so everyone can hear an example of how I write my email, I'm going to write it, and we're going to just protect Joey's identity by calling him Joey Bear. So I wrote, hello, I am writing in regards to Joey Bear. On Sunday morning, March 9th, he called me stating that he was itching and had hives and blisters on his body. He recently started 2 medications that are new. From my work in the health field, it was clear that he was having an allergic reaction which could easily become a medical emergency. He told the CO on his unit, who refused to let him go to medical treatment. He went to medical and he was refused to be seen for the allergic reaction. This could have been treated by providing an antihistamine, a small request, yet at times a life-saving measure. I called the prison and spoke to Miss Threston, who was very rude and unhelpful. She refused to call the unit to alert them of the allergic reaction. When I asked to leave a voicemail with the warden, she told me no, there is no warden. I replied that there must be an assistant and that I would like to leave a voicemail there. She then transferred me to a line with no voicemail. When I called back, she was very short-tempered, gave me her name and her number as quickly as possible, telling me that there was no one there that would help me, and then she hung up on me. I am shocked at how the staff works with the public. I live in Maine, and our prison system is much more progressive, treating families and concerns for the residents' health with respect and dignity. I understand that many prisons are still on the old way of doing corrections and still treat families like criminals themselves, but I really expected to be treated with a little more respect, as I think highly of the state of Colorado. I was not reporting a small thing. I was reporting symptoms of a possible medical emergency. Medical emergencies should never go ignored. I am shocked at how helpless the prison left me and the lack of empathy that Miss Threston had for myself and for Joey Bear. I hope that the Department of Corrections in the future will train their staff on how to work with the families in a respectful, empathetic manner. It is staff like this that is holding us back from a better future of corrections. I can only imagine how I would feel if I was reporting concerns of other medical emergencies, such as suicide. It is heartbreaking to know that the staff would rather let somebody possibly die than take families' concerns seriously. Thank you for your time, Cecilia Macmillan. Which sounds very professional, but there are some slights in there, which I was just talking to Skye about this, and she was like, that is awesome, because I imply a lot. I imply that they're not progressive. I imply that they're doing corrections the old-fashioned way by treating me like I'm an inmate myself. And I imply that they lack empathy. Okay, so like a lot is implied in a very short amount. And I think when it comes to this kind of shit, honest to God, like you get further sending a very professional email like that, calling them out in like a very respectful manner, than you do by telling them to eat shit and die. And like, trust me, I wanted to be like, cunt, like, I don't need you wasting my fucking time. Call that unit, you lazy bitch. But like, I would have just been like labeled as being a pain in the ass and like being like very like inappropriate. And so to prevent that, I just start going to higher ups and sending them like the world's most well-crafted email on how inhumane they're being. And when she refused to call the unit, I explained to her that it was cruel, unusual, and unconstitutional, and that I wanted to speak to the warden. And those are like my favorite things to throw down in a medical emergency when people are doing nothing. Because one of the only rights that Joey has left is the fact that the Constitution protects him from cruel and unusual punishment. And so if we imply that what is happening is cruel and unusual, it also implies that you're going to have a lawsuit. And, like, nobody wants a lawsuit, right? So I imply a lot of stuff when I'm talking to these people. And it's, like, threatening without threatening people, and it's a gift. But I think I've learned it from advocating for a lot of people in my work. But, like, that's how I handled it. But I was mad. Like, I was really, really mad. And after that, I called your brother. Call your brother every time I'm really upset and you haven't called me back. Your poor brother, but he takes it in stride. But it's really frustrating when, you know, you do get treated like you were no one because your loved one is in prison. That is so common for you to be treated like you were a criminal too because you were associated with somebody that's a criminal. And you will get treated with a lack of respect. They will be very unhelpful. And you will be, you know, and you will watch your loved one have no dignity in these instances. And I don't call over colds, the flu, little things. Like, I don't call over that. I only call if it's, like, immediate risk. Like, we're talking, like, somebody's suicidal and I'm afraid they're going to go back to their cell and hang themselves. We're talking, like, an allergic reaction where you could stop breathing from all the swelling. You know, like, things like that where it's, like, this is an emergency. Like, you need to do something. That's when I'm calling the prison, when it's, like, so out of line that it warrants a phone call. The rest of the time, I never bother them, and I do that so they don't label me as a total pain in the ass. But when it does matter, like, I really raise high holy hell over it. Whether you want me to or not. How embarrassing for you, Joey.
It's okay. It's okay. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that today.
That's okay. It's very upsetting, you know. Well, and again, like, I live in Maine, and, like, I never realized how progressive Maine is. Like, I can literally call Maine and just be like, I'm really worried about my loved one. And they'll be like, yeah, we'll call up to the unit for you. And they will get off the phone. And whether they do or not, they at least tell you that they're going to, so you feel better. And, like, they treat you like you're a human being. And so that is the prison system that I learned, like, how a prison system works. And so call me spoiled, but I'm used to being treated with, like, a lot of respect, a lot of dignity, with a prison system that's very progressive and is trying to treat their residents like people and trying to do the best that they can to keep them safe and to work with the families. And that is not every prison system. And it's always a shock to me when I call with a legit concern and I get treated like that. And it's just horrible. It's like a horrible feeling to be left helpless when you really are legitimately concerned about your loved one's well-being. What are your thoughts, Joey? Did I overreact? I don't think I overreacted. And, like,
No,
that girl should just do her job. Like, it's your job to answer the phone.
That's usually why I try to stay out of, you know, the limelight with medical. And even with my condition as is, the cause for this medication, it's very serious and everything. And there is a real need to try to get help. I've been going on for 3 years now trying to put all this and get help. And today was a huge setback because of the reverse reaction to those medications. Now posting at ground zero again and diagnosis and determining what's going to actually work to try to keep me alive. And so I don't think it's an overreaching thing that you call people and things like that when there's a real medical emergency. And I think the more family members it did, maybe the better these people would deal with their inmates and things, or residents, and there would be more communication back and forth. But yeah, so I don't think you overreacted at all. I think it was an appropriate reaction at the right time. I'm just sorry that you had to be stressed yourself after we talked about stress in prison and things that can just trigger people.
It can be definitely stressful for the family members as well. Like, you know, especially when it comes down to, like, medical stuff or safety stuff, you know, and there's just nothing you can do and your hands are tied. And, like, in some ways, like, maybe the prison's hands are tied because they need to go through all these policies and hoops. But at the same time, like, with a medical emergency,
beyond professional. And it takes that one person to be unprofessional that would derail the whole thing. And then one person gets unprofessional, the next one gets unprofessional, the next one gets, and you're fighting an uphill battle at that point. You never get nothing done.
And literally all this woman had to do was be like, yeah, I'll call the unit and let the CO know. And she could have just been like, hey, family members are calling. Did you call medical? And it would have been done with, and it would have been handled.
Right. And they could have all been avoided in the first place. That officer, just the first thing in the morning when I requested to declare medical emergency, would have called for the medical emergency.
Right. And because he didn't do his job, then I'm making a phone call with somebody else that doesn't want to do their jobs. And when nobody wants to do their jobs, this is how people end up dying in prison. And, like, right after,
we wish that Donald Trump would do that with prison systems, with cutting all these programs that the people in prison that are not useful and are out of the way. That way we can educate the ones that do work in here, and then you have people working with psychiatry degrees, psychology degrees, and how to really treat human beings, and that would make our prison system better. But I don't necessarily agree with all of Trump's ideologies, but this might be one of those good times. I wish he could cut the state system, the Department of Corrections individually. Yes.
So we did have good news after I went through all this and contacted everyone I could in the state of Colorado, because that's how I roll. You want me to make a phone call, I'm going to make 10. Everybody's going to know that you have hives by the end of the day. And hopefully I reach somebody that cares, and I probably will get phone calls tomorrow where I'll be like, they did end up handling it when he was really sick, And I'm just really polite. I thank them. I thank them for returning my call. I don't have any animosity. I'm really on my best behavior no matter how angry I am. But I do ring a lot of bells. If somebody's if Skye calls, or if Joey calls, or even if my ex-husband calls me and wants me to call the prison, and I'm talking to wardens, I'm talking to case managers, I'm talking to anyone that I can get to listen, and I just blow them all up, and then they won't hear from me for years. In the whole time that I've known Skye, now Skye and I have known each other for 6 years. I've only called her prison once. And the other contact that they had was a letter from me requesting an in-person visit. The rest of the time, they never hear from me. I'm just somebody on the visit list. I really don't pull out the big guns until I really need to. But then I go right into, almost case management mode. That's pretty much where I learned to do this, was doing case management when I was younger, when I first got out of college. But, I take my advocating really seriously, so I'll probably be responding to a lot of people over the course of the week as they get back to me. But Joey did get seen. Eventually, after it got really, really bad, they sent him down to medical, and they did give him an antihistamine, which is the only way to stop an allergic reaction from progressing. And it is just it's the tiniest little pill, but it can be a miracle worker when you're having an allergic reaction. And I think also for me, I recognize this right away because I have so many food allergies that, I've had my face swell up, and I know what it's like to be having your face swell, not being able to breathe, ending up at the ER, being help me, because, look at what my body's doing. And so, I know how fast it can go into a medical emergency because I've been there. But yeah, the prison system can...
Tonight, and I get to sleep.
I hope you get some sleep, too. I hope you're not too itchy. You can if you're going to take a shower, you really need to take a cold shower and make the hives worse.
No, I'm not taking a shower tonight.
Okay.
This morning while I was all itchy.
Yeah.
That set my ass on fire, so...
Yeah. Cold showers when you have hives. But navigating the prison system can be so tricky, and... What I find is if you stay really professional, though, and, you send, a very professional letter or email, you're taken more seriously. So, the more professional you can sound, the more they're going to give you, respect in return. Oh, we're getting cut off. So don't say eat shit and die. Even if you want to, hold that back. Tell that to your friends. But I was angry. I was so angry, Joey Bear. I was like, how dare you send me to a voicemail that doesn't exist? Anyways, thank you everyone for listening, and
thank you for listening.
We're going to wrap this up. I love you, Joey Bear.
Love you too.